Before the episode starts, make sure that you're following and that you've rated it 5 stars if you enjoy. It really helps out with growth. I'm working with Enamelogic because I genuinely believe this product is going to change dentistry forever. Dental insurance is often what most dentists cite as the worst part of dentistry, but Enamelogic helps dentists with the hardest part about dealing with insurance, the fee negotiation. They help dentists raise their fees in 3 simple steps. First step is where they find the money. Each dentist uploads their PBO's fee schedule and they see exactly where each carrier underpays you and how to get it back. The second part is to prove your case. They create personalized fee increase requests from your data, your practice profile, and local demographics to maximize your chances of winning. The third step is to get paid more. They handle pushback instantly using an algorithm trained off thousands of documents to help you get every dollar. If you use the link in the show notes, you can get the first 7 days free, so check it out and start winning higher fees. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Operatory Empires, the show where we learn what dental school doesn't teach. Today we have Dr. Sam on. He's a dentist that broke even on a startup 2 months after he opened, which is pretty much unheard of. If you talk to a lot of banks or a lot of buyers reps, they'll say you need 2 or 3 years. Don't expect, to make any money for 2 or 3 years. So really excited to hear how he did it, how he's grown it from then. And yeah, just kind of pick his brain a little bit. Dr. Sam, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Jackson. Really cool what you're doing on your end. And yeah, excited to share a couple of things here and there that I picked up and learned on this journey.
Awesome. Yeah, so just getting started, do you mind telling us when during your journey as a dentist you decided, I'm ready to hang up being an associate, I'm ready to be a practice owner?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I graduated 2010, right? And then I started my practice 2019. I would probably say, I think it was about mid 2017. I was working for my boss at the time, and I've actually stayed with him for about 4.5 years. And I just noticed that, patients were appreciative of like the care I was giving them. The team and everything seemed to enjoy working with me. So I just felt like, okay, maybe, this is a time that I could do this on my own. It took a little bit of time to kind of gain that confidence. I didn't actually think I was going to open an office like even 2016. So it just kind of all just kind of hit all of a sudden per se. I would say like around mid 2017. And yeah, from there, just kind of went with it.
Awesome. And then can you talk about what that process was like of finding a building, securing a
Yeah.
loan, things like that? What would you do differently maybe
Yeah.
going back now?
Okay. Yeah. Good question. So once I decided I was going to do it, there was just a lot of moving parts at the time. I believe I applied for the loan first because that's kind of like the first thing you need to be able to get, security in getting financed to even do anything. So I went through that process. There's, application process, due diligence. They have to like check all your accounts, your bank statements, tax returns, all that. So while I was doing that, I was also looking for like a place, right? So I was looking. I knew I wanted to be where I am right now in Orange County, like Southern California. But yeah, I hired a commercial real estate agent to help kind of navigate and kind of help me through that process. But I did a lot of it on my own. I drove around. I was driving early in the morning, late at night, just trying to feel like what pocket, what area I wanted to be in specifically. But a lot of things were happening simultaneously. It was fun and exciting, but yeah, just a lot of moving parts at the same time.
Yeah. So what kind of practice did you end up with? Do you like, are you able to share how many ops and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So I ended up leasing a 1,400 square foot space, and that was just what was allowed at the time, what the landlord allowed me to have. So I just kind of made do with it, and a lot of it came down to space planning or space designing. I wanted at least 4 ops. I was trying to see if I can squeeze 5 in, but just like from a design standpoint, I wanted my lobby to be a little bit bigger too, just for like a first impression of someone walking in. So I gave up a little bit on that. So I ended up with 4 operatories, which actually is plenty for the dentistry that I'm doing. We actually only operate mainly out of 3. I just use the 4th as like an overflow. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. So when you started that opening, I'm just curious, how did you run it? My dad, he like started a restaurant. I kind of bring this up sometimes. And I just kind of
Yeah.
saw that process of before he opened, you're training the staff on how it's supposed to be, but it's hard to really do all those things without any customers coming in. How was that for
Yeah.
like hiring staff at the start and then marketing to get patients to come in the door on day one?
Yeah.
Guess
No,
that's
good
2
question.
questions.
So I had my assistant, she worked with me at my other office, and I left that office and I didn't think she ended up moving to my area. So she moved like it was like about an hour away. So she ended up moving to my area, and then we just connected. I think she reached out, she was looking for a position. So she was kind of like the backbone of helping me out, like setting up the office. So I was already used to working with her. Um so she was super critical in setting up my whole office. She helped me a lot. And then the area that I went in was a very saturated area, not only for like patients, but then also for staff. So when you go into a saturated area, there's just a lot of people, right? So I did have that was part of the strategy, is to go into a saturated area to also be able to find staff fairly easily per se, as long as my office stood out in a sense to attract staff,
Right.
right? So I was trying to attract patients, but I was also trying to attract staff. Just the work environment, leadership skills, and kind of what I had to offer. So it wasn't too hard to find staff per se. So I eventually hired one other person. So we started out as just two staff members, and yeah, we did a lot of different types of marketing, ground marketing before we opened. Like networked with like the local fitness gym that was next door. Did like a booth there. There was some community events that we had like a booth set up. We partnered with, I don't know if you heard of like 1-800-Dentist or Emergency USA. So there are websites or lead companies that pay to get on like Google Ads. So they're like ranked up there when someone searches for like an emergency dentist near me.
Okay.
So they take, they charge us a referral fee, but that was a huge source of referrals that we got initially off the bat. I stayed open into the evenings on some days and then some weekends too. So we were kind of flexible. Like I had my office hours online open into the evenings, and then I would pick up calls. My lead assistant would pick up calls. So sometimes we would go home for a little bit, and then we would get a couple calls, and then we would go back to the office. So it was a little bit of a grind, the first
Yeah.
couple months, but it was worth it. And emergency patients are a good source of revenue, and also helping the patients out, when everyone else is closed. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw a video you posted actually about this where when you got your demographics report, I saw you use demographics. I
Yeah.
actually had Kent, he's the founder of the company. He came on for an episode. Um,
Oh,
but
great.
I saw
Okay.
that, yeah, he's really cool. But he said, or you had said that, just because the area is saturated doesn't mean there's no opportunity. You can do things like
Oh
be
yeah.
open when no one else is open or on the weekends. Were
Yeah.
those the two main things that you saw, was emergencies and staying late, that your competitors weren't really doing?
No, so I also heavily researched like Google reviews, Yelp reviews. I was trying to find, so I wanted to be in Orange County. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Orange County, but like
Yeah.
LA area of Southern
Yeah.
California. But there's obviously a lot of different pockets, just like any other geographical area. So I was looking strategically where I was going to go in like the Orange County area. But one thing I heavily researched was Google reviews and Yelp reviews. So what people were saying of the offices surrounding where I wanted to go. So yeah, I was looking at like 7 different locations. The one I happened to pick was the highest in terms of like the most saturated, but it was also an area that I felt comfortable going in because a lot of the dentists around the areas didn't have a very strong online presence. A lot of the offices were like older kind of style. You just walk in and it's just like, just from the pictures I see, and then just from driving around and seeing what those offices look like from a design and aesthetic standpoint, they were just like older and run down. Um, and then the dentists were also like older, I think like older technology. So that was a huge factor in giving me confidence to go into that market. Just being able to stand out on multiple, as many fronts as I can. But
Yeah.
office design was another huge factor in how I stood out because, like I said, all the offices around were just kind of older, run down. And
Right.
my strategy was like, hey, if I can create something kind of fresh, new, if someone walks in, it's just like that first impression. So, yeah, a couple different
Yeah,
things on how to stand out.
definitely. So at the start, how many days were you open? And then were you working at another office kind of waiting, or were you like fully in on
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, yeah. So I was still working at my boss's office, which is about an hour away. I was working like 2 days a week, and I just kind of, well, maybe 3 days initially, but I was still open at my new office, right? Like we would answer calls. I would have my staff there. They would answer calls while I was gone. And then I would actually come back after I would work there, I would come back in the evening to see some patients, right? Yeah, so it was a little bit of a grind, but
It's a
that was maybe
grind.
for like 3 months or so. Then I just tapered off. I think 4 months in, I just was like, okay, I'm just done. I'm gonna just focus, like,
Nice.
just go full time all in my office. Yeah.
Yeah. When were you able to bring on kind of like the auxiliary staff at your office, like full time other positions, and then have you brought in like hygienists
Yeah.
and stuff too?
Yeah. I think the hygienist was like 6 months in. Um, I could have kept going. I started out doing my own hygiene. I could
Mhm.
have kept that going, but I just wanted to start like building the infrastructure, start training, have my hygienist like, get involved with the culture and just learn the system. So I think 5 to 6 months in, I brought in another assistant and then a hygienist. I think she was like 4 days a week, pretty much close to full
Okay.
time. Hmm.
Yeah. How many days was your office open? And then is it still like that, or when do you kind of taper off and change the hours a little bit? Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So initially we were open. We always had staff there. 5 days a week. We were open Saturdays too. So pretty much, yeah, that was part of our strategy, is just to be open, have someone
yeah.
there at least, and then I would kind of be on call. Yeah, and then even to this day, we have 3 Saturdays of the month open. I'm not working there physically. Maybe I think I go there like once a month to see my patients.
Okay.
But but yeah, we're still open.
Wow.
Like five to
So
six
when
days a
did
week.
you?
Yeah.
So you have an associate in now? I'm assuming.
I don't. So these days, Mondays I take off, do like admin work. But I'm there. I'm pretty much there. I have an endodontist that helps me out, 2 to 3 times a
Oh,
month.
okay.
I did
Nice.
have an associate here and there, kind of throughout. So my startup was 7 years ago. So throughout that period, I did have some associates kind of come and go. Yeah, yeah. I had one associate that
Gotcha.
was here for like a year, and then she just had to move away.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Hmm.
so kind of going back to the start, what does the
Yeah.
insurance conversation look like? Are you like going in network? Are you still in network with all the insurances? Do you kind of just go in network at the start with all of them to get patients in and then you slowly drop them off, or how did that look for you?
Yeah, so that was the strategy. I did hire a company that negotiated my fees, and they actually did a pretty good job. They had a strategy on negotiating the fees. Like, I forgot what it's called. There's a term like where they piggyback off other companies to like save costs, but then the reimbursement tends to be a little bit higher than if you had like a direct contract. Something I forgot that term, but it wasn't direct contracts with a lot of insurance companies. But at the end of the day, like our fees were actually pretty good. So I was in network with
Cool.
pretty much every PPO, just to get patients through the door, kind of like you said.
Hmm.
And now, fortunately, I'm out of network with all insurances except Delta. So
Okay.
that's kind of the strategy where I wanted to kind of go. Hmm.
Yeah. How does that conversation go with patients? I feel like whenever in my like town Facebook page, I'll always see
Yeah.
patients posting and they'll say, anyone have recommendations for a dentist? I loved my dentist, but he just went out of network. So I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of patients don't really value the work as much, and you have to really like show them that value. How did you do that with those patients, and how was the retention like after you dropped or went out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
network?
yeah. No, good question. And yeah, it's all about building the value, building the relationship, the connection, and also being in an area that people value that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's in related to like demographics and geographic areas, and then also how you present yourself as an office, as a clinician. So, yeah, just the way I run my office. I've had my staff members pretty much from the start, so they see familiar faces. We build relationships. We have like follow ups on like every recall. There's always an actionable goal for them to like work on. There's always usually something in the mouth, right, where a patient can work a
Yeah.
little bit more on, where the lingual of like number 22, number 27. So we give patients actionable goals, and clear follow-ups. We take pictures. So it's a very personalized, I guess, visit to the dentist, not just clinically, but just from a customer service standpoint. If there's any questions, any issues, I'm always like calling them back within like a day, right? So I'm quick to return calls, but we don't really get too many of those calls. But anytime a patient just customer service, like just calling, reaching
Yeah.
back to patients. So all that stuff has helped build I guess the value per se, we probably did lose. I don't have like a report on how many patients we lost. But there have been some instances where patients go to like another office, or they'll be like, we're, unfortunately we just can't come back, or you're out of network now. But then they end up coming back. So we've had cases like that,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's worked out. But yeah, building the value up front is super critical, and the systems to help patients want to stay with you.
Yeah. No, and
Hmm.
that's awesome that they'll leave and then come back. So that really shows that the value you had in the like your prices you set was correct because they couldn't find it anywhere else for, I guess, a lower fee.
Yeah, and there's like there's other offices that have also seen it, and I think there's been like a study where if a patient leaves, the attrition is like 30% or 40 once you go out of network, but then it comes back, as long as you
Yeah.
provide the value. So yeah, that happens. So you can kind of expect that to
Right.
happen.
And then say if you went out of network, your like increased revenue per patient in that insurance goes up 30%. Even if they left, you'd be seeing less patients and making the same amount anyways. So anything else
Yeah,
is just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
icing
yeah.
on top.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm just at the stage in my life where I'm just kind of in a transition moment. So actually not trying to see like a whole lot of patients like before. So
Right.
it kind of just all works out.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
saw you post something too where a lot of dentists that sometimes you see them on social media where they're trying to do like the most advanced procedures. And if you enjoy that, I think that's great. But I think too many dentists think that you need to do that to make good money as a dentist or to have like a successful practice and career. But I saw you said you just kind of stick to bread and butter. Was there a decision
Yeah, yeah,
behind
yeah.
that? Or was it just like you just never felt the need to do more advanced procedures and like really stress out like that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. And that was the vision when I did a startup. I told myself I wanted to eventually just do stuff that I like doing and what I'm good at and what I'm fast at. And what's easy on my body personally.
Yeah.
So I had a vision to just do simple bread and butter dentistry. I just do, fillings, crowns. I do cleanings, Invisalign. So I had a vision to be that type of dentist per se, and then be a strong referral source to my referral networks, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the main thing that I wanted to share out of that, the main point is like I could make a whole lot more money if I did all on fours, implants. I could make ton lot more money, but that's just not stuff I'm interested in personally and clinically. So my main
Yeah.
thing is, all these things I'm kind of sharing is just to put yourself in a position to have different options, right? And I live a comfortable life. I'm happy with my career and everything, just doing the dentistry that I like doing. But that's the main point is just being able to put yourself in a position to do whatever type of dentistry. If you want to make a lot of money, if you like doing surgeries, then you have the option to do that. If you want to just kind of scale back like what I'm doing and still enjoy what you're doing and simple dentistry, not in the chair too long, then providing an option to be able to do that too. Hmm.
Yeah. And I think like you're saying, being able to give the value to those patients allows you to really like scale back where you don't feel like you have to do implants out of necessity because you're not making
Yeah.
too much on other things. And if you're able to create that value for patients, I think it just frees you up so much. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
thing too,
Yeah.
is when I started this, it was like I at first I thought the multi-practice thing looked awesome. And then the more dentists I've talked
Mm.
to, it's like you really want to just maximize that one practice as much as you can before you even think about other ones. And now as
Yeah.
I've talked to more and more dentists, I'm like, that just seems like the best option is just one good practice where you're involved in the community, you know everyone, and you're doing what you want
Mm.
to do. I'm like, it seems pretty much impossible to beat.
Yeah, and then everyone's different. Like I understand people
Yeah.
have a drive to like open more, right? It's just my thing is just being able to have options, right? And for me,
Yeah.
yeah, I like working with a smaller team. Just kind of putting that a little extra effort with each patient. And then obviously our fees are a little bit higher than like the market average around the area. But that's personally what I like, how I like to practice. But all for anybody, whatever route you want to go, all the soft skills, everything is super critical, and then it gives you just options, whatever
Right.
you want to do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The hospitality, the service, it all applies no matter if you have one practice or 100.
Yeah,
But
exactly, exactly.
kind of going back or just like kind of what you said, having the smaller team, what are
Hmm.
the stressors behind that? Because I feel like I'd be kind of worried if someone's sick then they're the one
Mm.
person for that position. Or if someone gets pregnant and leaves, how have you kind of navigated those situations as they've come up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you still have to have a big enough team where you have backups, right? So for me, everybody's cross trained. So that's
Oh,
how
okay.
I run my office, right? So my assistant or my receptionist in the front, she's actually an assistant, but I trained her as a receptionist, but she can come to the back. She's kind of like the third backup, right? So I have two
Yeah.
assistants, a lead. So if she's sick or calls off, then I have my backup assistant. If she calls or goes sick, then I have my receptionist who can always come to the back. And then I also have my hygienist who can also help me too as like a, so you still want to have a system where there's backups in every part of the operation. I ideally would like to have like a backup vacuum and a backup suction because I had a vacuum that went down like 2 weeks ago. That was stressful. But fortunately I had a good maintenance guy or mechanic guy that helped me out. But yeah, always good to have backups. And then I mean, the worst backup is, I just kind of do it, whatever, or I take an x-ray and, um, but yeah, we don't really have an issue with if someone calls off. I haven't had that issue really in a long, long time. Maybe when we first
That's
started, because I had like a slim staff, but nowadays, yeah. So have a
that's
big enough
awesome.
team to have enough backup, and again, cross train is super important in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Cross training seems like a great solution to that. So with
Yes.
the suction thing, how does how like is that one of the most stressful parts? Is just when the unpredictable things. It seems like when that goes out. How long did it take to fix it, and how are you scrambling the whole time?
Yeah. That I haven't had a moment like that maybe in a year or so, but there are moments like that. As a practice owner, there are moments like that, and I was kind of freaked out a little bit because the vacuum's down and we have patients scheduled, right? So
Yeah.
but I've learned that business there's always going to be stuff that kind of pops up. You just have to keep your cool. Obviously have good people that you work with, right? Like a good relationship with your mechanical engineer person. So fortunately, he came down within like 2 or 3 hours, fixed it, and then we did have to like navigate. We called the patients. I think we called like two or three patients that hey, our systems went down, and they're understanding, right? If you
Yeah.
just be honest with them, then they're understanding. So it happens. It's just part of it.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing where you've seen practice ownership's kind of gone down among dentists
Mm,
as a whole, or at least it's been moved a lot. And I think it's because a lot of dentists are worried about these things. The owning a business, they just like this the be able to go to work and go home, which like you said, if whatever you're happiest in your career, like that's the best option for you. So but I think these things
hmm
are where it's kind of like if you didn't know about that going in, that's a possibility that it all kind of falls on you. You'd probably be really
Yeah.
stressed out. You'd be like, why did I do this?
Yeah, there are times like that, but at least for me, there's still a huge like I wouldn't change anything, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. hmm
That's awesome. So when you started, how did your overhead look? Because kind of going back to what you started with, whereas breaking even after 2 months, is that more
Yeah.
so because you were able to get production higher in those couple months, or because you were able to keep overhead so low?
Um, it's a combination of both. So I only had two staff at the time, so my overhead with like employees was not very high, and I was still productive. With emergency patients, needing like a root canal and a crown. I mean, dentistry, it can still be a very productive
Yeah.
environment. So that's why I believe going into a saturated market where there's just a lot of people have teeth issues, right? There's just all around. So um, I think it was more so the revenue and just the procedures that were coming in was sufficient enough to break even and even make a profit early on.
Yeah.
But opening into the evening hours was a huge thing, at least in my market, because not a lot of places were open. Yeah.
Definitely. And then
hmm
when do you think when you quit your associate job, is that when you were kind of at that point where your owner income kind of had eclipsed your income as an associate? Like when you were working as an associate full time? Like when did you kind of hit that
Yeah.
mark, and then when has it grown since then?
Yeah. It was a challenge in a sense of like I'm not sure if I should do this. It was I was kind of going back and forth, But I think it's more of an innate kind of you just feel it that you just need to be at your office because when you're at your office, and this is advice I got from my mentors too. They're like, at some point you're going to just be much more productive if you're just at your office like full time, because somebody could walk in, and that happened, right? People would just randomly walk in, they got like a toothache. If I'm not there, then I mean, they have to reschedule, or they might just look for another place, right? So
Yeah.
I guess it got to the it it was I was going back and forth with it for maybe like a month. Like, should I just quit? Should I just? But the other thing was, I was having issues at my current office. It was just it started to kind of go downhill. So that also was what pushed me to just, okay, this is like enough. Like the hand pieces were just not being replaced. There's all these kind of internal issues with that office that was starting to happen. So I think it just kind of all, at least for my personal thing, just all kind of came together at one point. I was like, all right, I'm just out.
Yeah. Well, and then it's kind of nice. You're fully like jumping off the deep end where you really have to, you're like, this is going to work. So then you start probably
hmm
grinding that a little more and really starts growing after that.
Yeah. And then you just kind of, I think once you're in the moment, and this is probably, you won't really know until you're actually in that moment. But for me, it was just like, I just felt it. I just felt more energy in my office. Like my staff was needing me more. We were getting more calls. So I think there comes a point where you just feel it inside that I just need to be here more. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And
hmm
what if, I guess if I had to ask you, what are like the traits that you think are most important for a dentist to have that wants to become a practice owner? What would you say those be?
Mm.
And then on
Yeah, yeah,
top
yeah.
of that, if those things were kind of innate or if they're developed.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think communication is really, really important. And communication can be kind of a broad term, but communication to me, there's a lot of psychology involved. There's a lot of leadership skills involved. So working with people, I guess maybe that's another way of putting it.
Yeah.
Working with people, different types of personalities, a lot of patience involved. But I think those are like the most critical early on, and then everything can be learned. I mean, I was growing up, I was like a really shy person. I didn't really talk to a lot of people. I was probably the last person someone would think can lead a team or like do a startup, or so if I can do it,
Yeah.
I feel like anyone can do it. So there's a lot of things I learned on the way. I used to micromanage a lot, even the first 2 or 3 years leading my team, um which is something I learned to overcome. But there's a lot, I feel like anybody can become a leader. I honestly feel that, as long as they have the passion for what they do and they're open-minded. I think those are like the two, like open-minded to and willing to learn. um but having a passion is super critical, and I don't, that might be more of an innate thing, but all the soft skills I believe are learnable and trainable.
Yeah. That's a great
hmm
response. And I've heard a lot of dentists say that where the communication is like the most important thing. If a patient doesn't understand why they need a crown or they can't see it, they're going to think you're either
yeah.
scamming them or that they don't need it, you know?
Yeah, so that's a whole, yeah, that's another topic, case acceptance. But case acceptance is communication, and case acceptance
Yeah.
is, when you think about it, it's a driving factor. That's how I can sustain and reinvest in my staff, how I can
Yeah.
keep the AC on all the time. Like we have a
Yeah.
neighbor that they don't have AC running, during the summer. So it's like it all comes, I mean, not all, but a huge driving factor is communication with the patient and getting them to understand what they need done in their mouth, right? And then at the end of the day, getting them to accept treatment. Yeah, like early on in my career, I didn't communicate well, and I would get frustrated. I'm like, I see a cavity on the X-ray, like there's a big hole in the X-ray. Why did the patient not want to do the treatment? Because they're not having any pain. And then I realized, like, it was me. I didn't communicate that properly. I didn't take a picture. I didn't show them. I didn't show them what normal looks like. I didn't show them what a finished crown is going to look like. So that's all part of communication. At least with the patient and case acceptance, which is huge early on, because you don't have a lot of patients coming in. So you
Right.
have to kind of really, you know, get that part down. Yes, especially starting
Yeah.
out.
And people say the word sales and people hate the word sales in dentistry, but I don't think it's sales. I really do think it's just being able to communicate these things because if you
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
sound
yeah.
confident with whatever they need, they're
Mhm.
going to just, I said this on another episode where they'll go into the Apple store, they'll sound confident what they're selling, and then they'll spend the money on that instead, when they really did need that crown because they just didn't
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
why.
It's. I know, like healthcare, they don't really like the word like sales or anything. But I mean, every day we're trying to, like, I'm trying to convince my dog to like come eat or something. Like every
Yeah.
day it's influencing, but obviously leading people in the right direction, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you can influence people in a negative direction, but the goal is to influence people in the direction they need to go, and that's what people
exactly.
come in for. I go to a store if I'm looking to buy a jacket. I'm wanting to buy a jacket. I'm wanting to buy a pair of shoes, but if that person is not friendly to me, or if I'm sitting there waiting for a long time, or they didn't really like seem interested in me, then nobody wins at the end of the day, right? So it's the same thing with
Exactly.
any industry, how you look at it, so,
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a great
uh-huh.
point. And so you said at the start of your office you were kind of micromanaging your employees. Systems is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
another word I think you hear all the time in dentistry. But what did that
Mm,
look like to you? When were you able to stop micromanaging and kind of just implement systems that allowed your staff
yeah,
to
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
run without you?
Yeah, yeah. So, when I look back, I actually look at it as a process in leadership, and a process in owning an office, and just an evolution of a leader. So I actually don't regret being a micromanager, because I had to be a micromanager in a sense, because it was my baby and I needed to gain trust from my employees, right? So, but
Right.
that being said, you don't want to micromanage like the rest of your life, right? So there was a
Yeah.
point, and it was a leadership course and reading books, that I realized, okay, I need to finally just let go. And it was also a combination of, I began to gain more trust in my staff. Um, so I think it was a combination of those two things: is gaining more trust in my staff by having them there longer, and they're probably also there for a reason, just the way I treated them. Just the other ways I treated them, making them want to stay. But
Yeah.
but leadership course and books was probably like the catapult in, like, okay, you can get much more out of like having your staff just do more work for you. Like, and then
Yeah.
realizing that they actually want to do more work for you. They want to work more.
Right.
They just need to get like the handcuffs released per se. And once
Yeah.
I got over that hump, yeah, it was like, okay, maybe I should have done this sooner, or learned this sooner. Um, but yeah, just the whole unlock of freedom, and just sense of well being, just having them kind of take over per se. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, leadership was probably the most challenging part for me, at least on my journey, because I ran like small businesses that I would just run on my own. But this was the first kind of like big step in like leading a team. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges with that. Just communicating, like not sure what they're thinking on their end. Um, but the more I kind of just stuck with it, and obviously, like I said, read books on leadership, giving people more opportunities to do tasks, right, and just kind of letting people um, take control per se, with obviously an umbrella of like regulations and stuff. But yeah, that probably was one of the more challenging things. But then on the flip side, I actually really enjoy HR, just seeing my team and individual like workers develop over the years, like just improve
Yeah.
their quality of life, and then see them grow. Um, so yeah, I found that challenging at first, but now, I've learned to really embrace it. And yeah, it's a really cool thing in being able to lead a team. Hmm.
Yeah. So kind of getting into the tough part of HR, have you
Yeah.
had to fire an employee and how was that conversation? Was it tough to learn how to do that and develop that skill?
Yeah, I did. But it was challenging, a little bit stressful, to be honest. But then we ended up bringing that person back. So our
Oh, okay.
relationship with that person is actually, it's a very strong relationship now. Um, there was just some internal factors with like other team members and stuff like that. But that was a stressful and challenging part, navigating that part. It was only one individual. Um,
Okay.
but like I said, now we're actually really close friends, and it just kind of worked out.
That's
But yeah,
awesome. So kind of going into the practice, we talked about where it was when it started and kind of how you branched out from there. Where is it at
yeah,
now? Like, what does the practice look like day to day?
yeah.
What are the like numbers, if you're willing to get into certain numbers, and like how does it look in the future for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So nowadays it's I would say it's stable. Like I don't really have much stress per se. Procedure wise, clinically, I'm just comfortable with doing what I do.
It's awesome.
Um, I'm very comfortable with like treatment planning. I do my own treatment planning. I go over like costs too with patients. So it's a very comfortable situation in regards to like clinical. the clinical realm. Um, my staff, they've been with me for a while, so they're stable too. In regards to they know like how to work with me, so they're very comfortable too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of revenue, so I think um I shared a little bit about that, but our revenue has pretty much like stabilized. We're in like the 120s. I can share that part. We're
That's
like in the
awesome.
120s a
Yeah,
month. 120s, 130s. Um,
that's
there
great.
was like, yeah, a year or two where we were like the 130s, 140s, where I was just doing more work, and then we were
Yeah.
like in network. We were just seeing like a lot more patients. But now I don't really market too much. Yeah, we don't spend much on marketing. So a lot of it's just referral. So our like volume of patients has gone down a little bit, but I'm okay with that because I'm also transitioning into like a new phase in my career. Um, but the future of the office, I mean, it still has a lot of potential if I wanted to market more. We seem to have a good reputation in the community if we wanted to really market more. And I was kind of thinking about hiring like another associate dentist, and maybe, just getting um, more output out of the office. But that's just something I'm kind of debating. But I'm comfortable kind of where I'm at because I can just do my dentistry and then I'm transitioning into like consulting. So that's kind of like the
Mhm.
two realms, just kind of focusing on right now.
Yeah. I think it's awesome
Mhm.
that you're in a position where you can say that, where you're not really marketing to grow and it's based on referrals because there's so many dentists out there that are
Yeah.
dying for more patients to come in the door.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
a really cool place to be at.
Yeah, yeah. No, it really is. And I was talking to a couple of my other friends, just like one of my classmates, and he's kind of in the same position too. So it's like it's just a nice position to be when there's when you're not, when you're not pressured to do anything per se, right? Um
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, just with the team that I have and kind of what we built, fortunately that's the position that, yeah, man. Yeah, and
Yeah.
someone like you're learning like right from the start. I've always wanted to kind of put that in is like I'm really that's really smart of you for what you're doing. Um, like
Thank you.
yeah, when I was a third year student, I was did not have any clue on like all these questions you're asking, but that's going to put you in a
Thank
really
you.
good position. Yeah. Hmm.
I hope so. Yeah, because I've especially with the whole like loan situation changing and dentistry, everyone says it's fallen off a cliff since COVID and how difficult it's been. There was a lot of negativity out there, and so I've been
Oh,
finding dentists. Like I knew some dentists that have been doing really well, so I was like, I know there's dentists doing well out there. I just want to find them and kind of figure out how they do it, instead of falling for this echo chamber that dentistry is like terrible and no, it's not never worth it anymore. But I think it's been great.
yeah. No, 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 no. I think yeah, I still see a bright future for dentistry. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for you, I'm sure Southern California has like a ton of DSOs. Has you ever been like Has that ever been a competition for you, or what? Where you think you're able to establish your brand early enough on where you were never really competing for the same patients? Because that's another thing people say is that DSO
Yeah.
saturation has been an issue.
Yeah, yeah. So this comes kind of down to like the business model. So DSOs are at least at this stage, and I don't know the future of it, but right now it's a different market. Like their patients that they're trying to attract, it's a different market than what I'm trying to attract. So it's still I don't really have any concerns with like DSOs like taking up patients that could potentially come to my office. I know they are expanding, but at least from I still feel there's a marketplace for like a smaller kind of boutique-ish office per
Hmm.
se. Um, yeah, that's my opinion.
Because I think with dentistry too, a lot of people, I mean, my parents, my siblings even, they all hate the dentist. And so for
Hmm.
them to really want to get work done, they're going to have to go in multiple times, really get to know the team. So if you're going to a
Hmm.
DSO where they're kind of doing quick appointments, it's a different dentist every time you're in there. You're not really going to want to
Yeah.
feel ready to do, big treatment plans with them.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole business strategy is there's a market for DSOs, right? And I'm sure there's patients that appreciate that model because they're very efficient with their systems. Their pricing is
Hmm.
probably a little bit lower, right? So I feel like there's a market for every I guess, patient in every business per se. There's different like marketing ladders, right, or marketing segments, right? So DSOs are valuable to a lot of people, right, because they're
Yeah.
systems. It's easy to get in. They're like on top of their recall, their system. Like I said, their pricing might be a little bit lower. Um, but with that being said, there's patients that do appreciate seeing the same people over and over, right? And having a little bit more of a customized, personalized care, having the same doctor, right? So there's a market for that too. So yeah, it's just a matter of which market you want to kind of like go into. But I still think there's a good market for like a smaller kind of like my type of practice. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
You mentioned something where you said you're the one that does the treatment planning and presentations to the patients. That doesn't
yeah,
seem, I feel like a lot of offices don't have the dentist doing that. Has that been something you've
yeah,
always
yeah.
done, or was it just kind of like you slowly got more comfortable with it?
So I didn't do this when I was working at other offices. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, majority of offices, I believe, even to this day, there's like a treatment coordinator or someone else is going over the
Yeah.
treatment plan. But I actually, when I started my office, I wanted to go over everything with them because I just feel like that's more clear versus like two or three people, two or three middle people. Because yeah, when I worked at like other offices, there's oftentimes like miscommunication, like, oh, I thought we were doing this tooth, but then the person writing it down, the assistant is writing down what I tell them, and then she'll take it to like the treatment coordinator, and then the treatment coordinator will like input everything, and then come back and talk to.
Right.
So there's like two or three people in the middle, and then there's
Yeah.
oftentimes where like I'll get a knock on my door. It's like, wait, I thought we were doing this tooth. I'm like, no, 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 we're doing this tooth. Like he was having issues with this tooth, and then there's like all this confusion, and then that's when patients
Yeah.
are they're confused too, right? And then you can't really expect someone to pay for a full treatment when they're confused. So that's why I like just going everything from like zero to like A to Z, like I'll even schedule the patients, that way it's just one person talking. And that's why I feel like it's really important to know everything about your business, insurances. So I know how to talk about insurances, how to maximize your insurance. So, but patients, I feel really appreciate that because it's all just like coming from one person and
Yeah.
it's all just clear and seamless. Hmm.
Yeah.
And
So how
quicker
does
too.
Yeah, how does that conversation go? Because I've heard other dentists say that when the dentist started doing it instead of the treatment coordinator, they kind of talk all over the place. They're trying to over explain things because obviously we're dentists, we know what's going on, but you can't really say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the cusp is
Yeah.
fracturing here. How does that, like,
Yeah.
how simple do you try to keep it for patients? And like how
Yeah,
short, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah.
or what does it look like?
Yeah, so really, really simple. So this is the key to like treatment planning. You just keep terms really simple, right? Instead of like a cavity, I'll just say you have a crack or you have a hole. It's just more clear. And then I take tons of pictures. So I'll take tons of pictures before, and I'll show them. So I have a screen right in front of them, and I'll be like, I first also hear what they want to achieve, right, before I talk. So if someone is just really concerned and I can feel like they're guarded, like some patients come in, they're like, I just want a cleaning. And I'm like, okay, no problem. We're going to get you a good cleaning. And then I'll actually diagnose stuff after their cleaning. So a lot of it is feeling out the patient and what they want, right? Some patients come and they're like, yeah, I haven't been at a dentist in a while. I trust you. Just give me like the whole, I want to know everything that's going on. Then when that happens, I'll go into much more depth on detail because that's what they want to hear. So a lot of it is really reading the patient and understanding what they're there for and what they want to achieve. And then from there, matching their energy, right? If it's an older lady, I'll sit down, I'll like talk a little slower. So all that stuff is super critical into treatment planning. But yeah, easy terminology, super important. Rather than like periodontal disease, like you have a gum infection, right? Or you have gum disease, just stuff that they can
Yeah.
easily digest. Hmm.
Yeah. I think also, it's just kind of hard for a patient to hear, the dentist says you need something, then the treatment coordinator comes in and says, "Hey, we're going to be doing this, this, and this." But if the
Yeah,
patient has
yeah,
any
yeah.
further questions on the treatment
Uh huh.
coordinator can't really answer them. The dentist kind of has
They
to be
can't.
there,
They
and then they
can't.
might they might raise
Yeah.
their guard up.
Yeah, exactly. And then people coming in and out, it's just like, what's going
Yeah.
on? I feel like I'm at a car dealership or something, like they're going back to the manager. They gotta like go back to the office to crunch some numbers.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just my it's worked well at our office and then it's just a lot more efficient and we just, patients seem to appreciate it too.
Yeah. So you
Hmm.
talked about kind of meeting patients where they are. What do
Yeah.
you do for patients that are kind of like full guard up? I don't trust the dentist. I think that
Yeah.
the last dentist
Yeah.
scammed me. Do you come
For
in
sure.
like,
For sure.
yeah, you might just explain that?
No, no, definitely. We get a lot of that. We get a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that. So, like, if there's little triggers that I can tell, right? If someone's guarded, right? So we had a patient. So usually when I come into the room, if they kind of like nudge back, like you can see like body language, right? If they kind of nudge back, you can already tell that they're guarded. So right away, I'll sit down. I'll match their like level, right? I had a patient that came in, he just stood in the corner. He didn't even sit in a chair. And immediately I was like, okay, I understand he's probably really guarded, right? So I just
Yeah.
stood right in the corner with him, and we just had a conversation first, right? Not even talking about dentistry. I think he brought in like a motorcycle helmet. I was like, oh, cool. I used to have a bike too, like we just kind of
Yeah.
like broke. It's called disarming in like hospitality. You just break the guard down, and then we just talk, and then I just hear him like, what is it that you're in for? Like open-ended questions. What can we do for you, right? And then he'll just start talking, and then I just focus on that particular situation, right? For guarded people. And then this happens all the time, right? Patients are like, I'm just here for a cleaning. So immediately that tells me, okay, they're guarded, right? Because they don't want a dentist going over like a laundry list of things, right?
Yeah.
So when I hear that, I'm like, no problem. We're going to get you a good cleaning. After we clean your teeth and after we clean out, then I can get a better visual, and then I'll come in, just make sure everything's looking okay. So just keep it real simple, but the main thing is to get to the cleaning as fast as possible and do a good cleaning. And then now they're open. Now you gave them what they want. And then now I'll go in there and be like, yeah, I just have to let you know, it's just my part of my responsibility. Do you have a cavity here? And then I show them on the x-rays, show them on the pictures. So I guess the main thing is really paying attention to what they're mainly there for and sensing that they're guarded, and then just giving what they want right off the bat. And
Yeah.
then you still have to cover your bases, right? Like you still got to do your full exam, but that can come after, right? So
Yeah.
little bit, I
No,
don't
that's
know, it
great
might be a
advice.
little confusing, but just some
No, it
strategies on
makes
how to
sense.
like navigate. Because we see a lot of
Yeah.
that, and a lot of dentists do get kind of frustrated because they want to like explain everything. They think they just want to talk about like this cavity because that's what we're trained for, right?
Yeah.
But it does take a mindset shift in kind of
Definitely.
ordering what you talk about.
Yeah. How does your conversation go with perio patients? My mom actually went to the dentist for the first time in a couple years, last week or a couple
Okay.
weeks ago, and she called me and she was like, I didn't even get my cleaning done. Like they said I need to get a deep cleaning. And I was trying to explain to her, there's preventative dentistry and there's restorative. Like you can either prevent something, but once that happens, you can't prevent it with a normal cleaning. You have to fix it or start to treat it.
Yes.
So is that kind of what
Yes.
you do with their perio patients if they just want a cleaning?
Yeah, we get that a lot too. And I actually love these conversations because when you get them to understand, it's kind of rewarding in a sense that like,
Yeah.
okay, you got them to finally understand because they keep going to these dentists and they just want like a regular cleaning, right? So first of all, I show them pictures, right? I show them pictures and how I explain things and how I explain that I stress a lot more importance on the gums and the bone because once you lose it, you can't get it back. First of all, right? A tooth we usually can restore, like a crown or a filling. I also say it's a silent killer. Unfortunately, a lot of people come in, they're not having any pain or anything, but the only reason they're coming in is something's starting to feel loose and they haven't had a proper cleaning in a couple of years. They don't really brush and floss. So when I frame it that way, they start to like, they start to kind of like tune in. They're like, oh, okay. And then I show them pictures, right? I'm like, this is what normal looks like. And I'll show them like a normal, like, well, we have like normal, x-rays
Mhm.
just as a sample. Like this is what normal looks like. This is your situation. You see how your bone is like down here? So the problem is it's not going to elicit any symptoms. That's why it's like a silent killer, right? If someone has a toothache or a chip, you usually feel something and then they call a dentist. But this
Yeah.
is like a zipper just starting to unwind. Things can start to go south kind of quick and we can't get what we lost back. So when I frame it that way, they start to pay attention and they're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then I show them like clinical pictures. That's why your gums are like red and swollen, right? It shouldn't look like that. It should look like this. Then I show them what normal looks like. So showing pictures what their condition, and then what it's supposed to look like at the end is super important in getting a patient to understand. And then I just
Yeah.
frame it like that's why you put down your bleeding on the new patient forms, right? After the deep cleaning, like a basic cleaning, we're only going to be able to get down to like here. So I'll show them like physically where a basic cleaning can get down to, and you still have a whole pocket, right, full of like
Yeah.
bacteria. So that's where you need a deep clean because it just takes more time. We need to go in there. We need to make sure we do a good job. So when you kind of like frame it that way, we don't really have a problem with patients. Like they're like, okay, I get it. So it's all on like how you explain it and how you and what you show them.
Yeah, because for the patient, there's just a certain amount of information between them, like not liking you and them understanding the treatment. So if you can just kind of cover your
Hmm.
bases on that, then they're totally going to be on your side. Like there's a certain
Yeah,
amount of
yeah,
evidence
yeah,
you can just show them, and they'll totally be agreeing with you.
yeah. But yeah, and it's super important. Like the first 5 seconds of meeting the patient, if it's like an older lady, right, and I'm like talking really loud or I'm like kind of hovering over them, no matter what I say, it's just going to be, they're not going to really take it because the energy matching is not quite there. Versus like I come in, softer tone, I sit down. Okay, now we're like, we got the energy matched, and now they're more attuned to like what you have to say. Then you go through your list of like, kind of explaining what I did. So I feel like it all kind of ties together, but the first like 5-10 seconds, like getting their attention, like matching their energy is super important for them to like listen to you later on.
No,
It's
definitely.
a lot of psychology, a lot of strategy, but very effective if you can do it. If you can nail it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dr. Sam, I got one final question for you. If you
Yeah,
were
definitely.
a dental student now, or if you're a dentist that just graduated in May 2026, what are the things you would
Okay.
do to kind of advance your career, I guess, either as quickly as possible or just to get, like, what were the things you do to get to the career you want?
Yeah. Okay. So I would first read books on, or not read books, but learn case acceptance, how to increase your case acceptance, and I would try to do and see as many like procedures as possible because starting out, that's what associate you know dentists are valuable for. They can do like a wide range of procedures, right? So being open-minded to doing a lot of procedures, that's going to boost your value. So basically coming out of school, you want to have as much value as possible to a practice owner, right? So a practice owner, I'm a practice owner, right? When I look to hire, I'm looking for someone with a good personality that knows how to communicate with patients, that knows how to communicate with team members, right? So as an associate dentist, you're kind of like a leader in a sense. You're still leading a team, right, under your boss. So learning how to communicate effectively, how to increase your case acceptance, and a practice owner is also looking for a dentist that knows how to do a wider variety of procedures. So I'd probably say those
Yeah.
those three things.
Yeah, those
Hmm.
are great advice. All right, thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on. If people want to reach out to you to ask for help or just any sort of tips, where can they reach you?
Yeah. So I have Instagram, TikTok. It's at the Dental Sam. So yeah, just shoot me a message, and yeah, I'll try to help you out as much as I can. That's what I'm here for.
All right, if you stuck around to the end, thank you so much for listening. And again, I want you to rate and follow the podcast if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to hear in the next one.